Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail, and the big news over the past 10 days is the proposed sell-off of 300 million acres of public land. And this is not necessarily a surprise to me, but it is what it is. And this is part of our political process. We need to share our voice. No one that we elect is going to align perfectly to our particular interest. It's just the way it is, and it's part of what makes this country great in terms of electing officials, that sort of thing. And we have a voice, and it's important, regardless of who's in office, to share your voice. And that the way that I would recommend doing that is go to congress.gov, reach out to your members of Congress, email them, call them, or do both. But this is the process. And I think that we have to make our voice heard, and this is the way to do it. And if you haven't done it, you should, because I think our voice needs to be overwhelmingly loud, regardless of the elected official. They need to know that public lands is not on the table. And so get that done. It's important. Pivoting from that, we are in late June, as I mentioned. July 4th is quickly approaching, and that is the kickoff of a lot of hunting season or hunting preseason, whether you're going to go out west to hunt pronghorn or whatever. Maybe in September you're going elk hunting. There's a lot of things that are on the docket here. I've been messing around with some things and trying to get some trail cams ready, and I really have been leaning more towards these SD card cams. I mean, the one I've, I traditionally have used those, and then started introducing cell cams in certain areas that made sense, and then I, I'm really liking. There's a muddy camera from Academy for $30, Academy Sports and Outdoors. You could just order it online if you don't have an Academy near you. And it's $30, and it's really, I think, a strong value in terms of an SD card camera. I think it's 16 megapixels. It has a locked closure where you put the cord through. It's different than those Tasco cameras, because the Tascos you attach to the tree, but anybody can open them up and take the SD card out. And so I've got a little fleet of those cameras that I try to get out there, and I want to get some out in the coming weeks. And in fact, I have some that are out there that need to be pulled from last year. But I'm really excited. And one of the things I'm going to start doing, I think, this year is having my cameras sit, maybe hang outside underneath my deck. I need them to air out. I think we think so much about scent control and with the wind and with our, maybe with our clothing or other things, and but we don't often think about our cameras. And last year I would stick cameras out during the season, and it was clear that they were getting attention. Now, it's one thing when they're just seen and it's a different object, but it's quite another if it has a bunch of stink on it. It smells like a big chunk of plastic, or if it has my scent on it or whatever. And I have never, I guess the reason why I haven't cared a lot about the scent of my cameras is because I don't use cameras like they're not a huge part of what I do. They are a part, but they're not a huge part. But I think this year I'm going to start unpackaging them, loading them with the batteries in the card, getting them set up, and then hanging them underneath the deck to let them air out and get them, whatever sort of that scent that's on it, sort of to dissipate. So I don't know. I'm sure some of you all have already been doing that, and if you have a strategy or a way that you handle those things, feel free to share it with me. I'd love to chat about it on the podcast. Uh, Today we're going to talk about some binos that I took a look at. These are image stabilization binos. It's the Sig Sauer Zulu 6 12 by 42 and the Canon IS3 12 by 36. Now, obviously, it's not a complete apples to apples comparison, but I think it does give you a framework for understanding if there's value with the hunting brand versus the non-hunting brand. And with the Hunt Detail YouTube channel and of course this podcast, I try to look at those things like where is the value at with a particular cat within a particular category. Now this isn't the entire category, but I wanted to look at this brand versus the Sig Sauer versus the Canon because I wanted to see like is there an opportunity there for me to use something different than a hunting brand and pay a little less money. And so I think you'll find this an interesting comparison. And if you subscribe to the Hunt Detail YouTube channel, you may have already watched the video. But before I get to that, we have a couple partners. Raw Rev, high protein, low sugar, perfect for hunting, hiking, backcountry, or just sort of the afternoon. Like I'm trying not to eat sugar. Uh, Raw Rev bars are great. Use the code DETAIL at rawrev.com and you'll save 20% on your first order. Uh, Redmond salt and then Relight electrolytes. We use Redmond salt on pretty much everything. It's derived from a salt bed in Utah here in the United States. It is full of trace minerals and as is the Relight electrolyte mix. And when I'm just drinking water or if I'm actually hunting, hiking, I want electrolytes. And the Relight is fantastic. It comes with a bunch of different flavors. Use the code DETAIL. You're going to save 15% on your order. And I believe that that's for any order. It's not just your first order. On Amazon, we've got the Western Hunt Elk Planner for $1.99. So just look up Western Elk Hunt Planner. Great value there. And let's talk about these binos. So I've been looking at the image stabilization Sig Sauer binos for a couple years now. When they came out originally, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, I was really interested. But I wasn't hunting in a way that I felt like it justified the expense. I was doing a lot of elk hunting in dark timber, doing a lot of whitetail hunting in tight timber. And I I just thought, I don't really sometimes I take my binos in the whitetail woods. I always take them when I'm elk hunting, but I really hadn't used them a whole lot because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of ROI on when you just use regular binos as you're standing still. I mean, your hands are shaking, the wind, you're picking up traces of movement. You're trying to figure out, is that a shooter? Is that the target? Is that an elk? Is that a deer or whatever? And so I've had them, but I haven't used them a lot. Well, this year I'm going out west to hunt mule deer in open prairie country, and I thought this is the year that I really need to jump in because I know that this would be a real benefit. I'm going to be scanning terrain. I don't want to take a tripod, and I want to use something that's really going to help me pick out a bedded mule deer buck that's in an old bed that's been carved out by years of use, and you can barely see the tips of their antlers because of brush or terrain or whatever. I really wanted to get an image stabilization bino, but like a lot of things, I'm looking to find value, and when I look at puffy jackets, uh, I've that's a very popular video on Hunt Detail on YouTube. The puffy jacket playoff. I'm looking at like 8 or 9 different puffy jackets, several of which are from hunting companies like KUIU, First Light, Sitka, Um, and then several non-hunting companies, Columbia, Eddie Bauer. There's some other brands mixed in there. And so I wanted to see, is there value in a non-hunting company puffy jacket? I think the same could be said for rain gear even. We don't, how often are you really using rain gear? Do you need something from Sitka or something from Eddie Bauer suffice? Especially when you look at the several $100 price difference. Now, in some cases, there is a difference in value. I have a pair of uh, First Light Foundry corrugate pants that I use during mid to late season, really more late season hunting. And I don't, for me, they're a perfect pant because it could be cold in the morning, warm in the afternoon. They're very thick. They're a little heavier, but they have knee padding, reinforced. Uh, it's reinforced in certain areas, like the knees and the butt, and they have these vent zips on the side that help you dump heat, and so I can really control my temperature with those pants, and they're very tough. And if I had a layer underneath, they can help keep me warm. But in some cases, like my early season pants, they're Wrangler, $26 and four-way stretch, and they're great. And I don't think I would ever spend by a hunting brand for my early season pants. And so you can sort of look at different categories, and that's what I try to do is look at the different categories and understand where is the value, not only within hunting brands, but is there value with an off brand that's outside of hunting like Canon. And so right out of the gate, the 6 hour binos are about $1,000. The Canon IS3 are about $659. And so right out of the gate, there's about a $350 difference between the two products. So is that Canon? Is that something that's of real value? And we'll take a look at some other dynamics. I chose the 12 by 42s, and they have a 16. I believe it's a 16 by 42. It has the same field of vision as the 12 by 42, but it has greater magnification. So the first digit is your magnification. So it magnifies things by 12, a 12 by 42 versus I was considering the 16 by 42, but when you're hunting dark timber, elk, or big woods, whitetail, a 12 is really, I think, a sweet spot, or a 10, but I don't believe they come in a 10 by 42. And so I chose the 12 by 42 because I wanted that 12 magnification, and the 42 is the objective lens, and that impacts the amount of light gathering that you can get with your set of binos. So that larger objective lens means that there's a larger exit pupil, and it allows more light in. So I felt like the 16 by 42s would be a little bit too much in terms of magnification, especially when I'm in these tight spaces, dark woods, big timber, elk or whitetail. But I thought it would be helpful, of course, as I hunt open prairie mule deer this year. So right out of the gate, the Canons are less expensive, and they also have a larger field of view. So the field of view of the 6 hours is about 200 feet at 1,000 yards. So at 1,000 yards, I can see 200 feet across. The Canons is about 230 feet at about 1,000 yards. So larger field of view. Let's talk about weight. Well, from a weight standpoint, the 6 hours are about 1 pound, 5.2 ounces. The weight of the Canons is about 1 pound, 6.9 ounces. So the SIGs both are heavy, but the SIGs are a little lighter. The exit pupil, which I mentioned on the SIGs, the way you determine exit pupil is you take the objective lens and divide it by the magnification. So if it's a 12 by 42, you divide 42 by 12 and you come up with 3.5. It's 3.5 millimeters as it relates to an exit pupil. That is the amount of, in comparison to, if you want to compare binos, it'll allow you to see what, how much light gathering capabilities they have in comparison to another version. So 12 by 36, you divide 36 by 12, that's 3 millimeters. So clearly you have better light capturing capabilities with the, based on the exit pupil of the Sig Sauer. From a size standpoint, the Canon is a little wider. It's about 5 inches, whereas the Sig Sauers are about 3 inches across. They're both about 7 inches in height, but they're the Sig Sauers are more sleek and slimmer. And then from a battery life standpoint, the Sig Sauer is has about a 12-hour battery life versus, I'm sorry, the Sig Sauer has about a 30-hour battery life versus 12 hours with the Canon. So I'm starting to see some things here that make a difference. From a stabilization standpoint, they were both excellent. Operationally, they're little bit different. The Canon is a push button, and you have to hold it down. And I could see where that could be helpful, where it's very quick, one-handed operation. The Sig Sauer, on the other hand, is a little switch that you flip to turn on. And then you can leave it on indefinitely, which could be a problem, because it's going to run down your battery very quickly. Or it's going to run down your battery. Say, like, if you leave it on and put it back in your pack. It does have, the 6 hours does have a target mode, which is interesting. So you turn it off and turn it back on again, and it has a different light. And that target mode really sort of sticks to the area that you identify a little bit longer. It'll drag in a different way. And you can see this on the video if you go to Hunt Detail YouTube. Let's talk about waterproofing. So the Sig Sauer has IPX7 waterproofing. And what does that mean? Well, it means that it could be in underwater for 30 minutes within 1 meter of water. And that's a pretty high standard of waterproofing. There's roughly 9 levels to this. You could have IPX0, which is no protection, and up to IPX9, where it could withstand high pressure and temperatured water jets. Now, the Canon has no waterproofing. Now, Canon does offer that, but it doesn't offer it for this brand or this version. And so right there, you have something that's a real problem if you're planning on use these things outdoors and in different situations. They're going to get wet. What about lens coating or reflective coating on the lens? What about lens protection? Well, the Sig Sauer has what's called HPX. The Canon does not have any lens coating. It offers it with other iterations, but not with this one. What about eye relief? Well, the Canon has these plastic cups, but they don't adjust. The Sig Sauers actually have cups that you can twist. They come out a little bit. You can turn them back in. They go right up against the lens. And it's important because if you're wearing glasses, that's when you're going to want the eye relief based on if you want your eye up to against the lens, or if you need your eye further away from an eye relief standpoint. And so again, the Sig Sauers offer something that the Canon doesn't. From an image quality standpoint, I did notice some slight differences in terms of crispness, both at first light, literally 30 minutes before sunrise, and I tested the binoculars again at midday and then 30 minutes after sunset. And all of these are times when we would be using these, but specifically at sunrise and sunset, I wanted to see what the light gathering capabilities were, what the crispness of the images were, and really in all 3 settings, I felt like the 6 hours were just a little bit more crisp, edge to edge, than the Canons. And then lastly, I'll leave you with this, is the warranty on the Sig Sauers is no receipt, transferable, lifetime, infinity warranty. The Canons, I couldn't find a warranty. And so this is one of those scenarios where it really was, when you pull the layers back, it was a slam dunk that the Sig Sauers at $1,000, clearly a better value than the Canons, because the Canons just don't have, they're just not designed. They're probably more designed for the bird watcher. They're not designed for the outdoorsman that's going to be abusing having their product get wet, and really need something that is compact and comes with that warranty. So it really, unfortunately, it wasn't one of those situations where it was sort of close. It really wasn't even close. But if you're looking at purchasing a pair of image stabilization binoculars, I would encourage you to check these out. Now, I waited because I thought, other companies, other brands, the brands that you think of that are in the hunting space are going to come out with something that competes with the Sig Sauers. But at this particular point in time, there just isn't anything else out there, or there isn't much out there that's going to compete with them because of all of the things that they offer, from the size, the design, the features. And so I hope that if you get a chance, go to I think Cabela's carries them. If you want to check them out, it'll give you an opportunity to see what it's like. If you're going to Attack Total Archery Challenge, that's another place where you can try the Sig Zulus, the Sig Sauer Zulu 6s. So best of luck this week, if you get a chance to get out and scout or set your cameras up. I appreciate your time and support. Give us a podcast of 5 stars on iTunes, and we'll talk again next week.